Mangwanani mwalelepo vukenjani klenkwa svanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening in the SADC region and beyond. As usual, you are joined by Ashwin Berry and Aina Raiza Kweyo.
Today is the International Day of Sign Languages. This International Day recognizes the importance of sign languages for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and fulfilling its core promise of leaving no one behind. It also offers an opportunity to support and protect the linguistic identity and cultural diversity of all sign language users. And here is more on that.
Today is Thursday, the 23rd of September, and here are today's top stories. In our first story, restore trust and inspire hope, UN chief says in message to UN General Assembly 76. With humanity on the edge of an abyss and moving in the wrong direction, the world must wake up, Secretary General Antonio Guterres said in his keynote address to the UN General Assembly on Tuesday. Outlining 6 great divides that must be bridged now, he called for greater action in areas such as climate policy, gender equality, and closing the gap between rich and poor. Mr. Guterres singled out disturbing image as indicative of the present moment, citing the picture we have seen from some parts of the world of COVID-19 vaccines in the garbage, expired and unused. Additionally, people are at risk of losing faith not only in their governments, but in UN values such as peace, human rights, dignity for all, equality, justice, and solidarity. Like never before, core values are in the crosshairs, he said. A breakdown in trust is leading to a breakdown in values. Promises, after all, are worthless if people do not see results in their daily lives. Additionally, lack of international unity is another hindrance, with geopolitical divisions undermining international cooperation and limiting the capacity of the Security Council to take the necessary decisions. The Secretary General called for cooperation, dialogue, and understanding to restore trust and inspire hope among nations, and for investment in prevention, peacekeeping, and peace building. Bridging the climate divide will require bridging trust between the North and South, he said, underscoring the need for success at the COP26 UN Climate Conference in Glasgow, which starts on 31 October. Ending the pandemic for everyone, everywhere, is the first step in bridging the gap between the rich and poor. He underlined the need for a global vaccine plan to reach 70% of the world's population by mid-2022 through at least doubling present production capacity. Bridging the gender divide is not only a matter of justice for women and girls, it's a game changer for humanity, he stated. Women's equality is essentially a question of power. We must urgently transform our male-dominated world and shift the balance of power to solve the most challenging problems of our age. Restoring trust and inspiring hope means bridging the digital divide, he continued, noting that half of the planet still does not have access to the internet. The final bridge to mend is the generational gap with young people who will inherit the consequences of decisions made today, whether good or bad. However, he stressed that young people need more than support. They need a seat at the table. Young people need a vision of hope for the future, he said. We must prove to children and young people that despite the seriousness of the situation, the world has a plan and governments are committed to implementing it. We need to act now to bridge the great divides and save humanity and the planet.
Insurgency in northeastern Nigeria killed 300,000 children. The United Nations Children Fund has reported that more than 300,000 children have died and over 1 million pushed out of school in 12 years of an insurgency in Nigeria's northeast region. New data from the agency on the condition of children in the state of Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe since 2009 when Boko Haram fighters struck in the region show that 5,129 out-of-school children are battling mental illnesses as a result of the conflict. UNICEF said the deaths underlined the direct and indirect attacks on children. Hawkins said that the AU-funded support to early recovery and resilience project implemented by UNICEF was aimed at improving the mental health of 5,129 out-of-school children in the Borno state. He also said that stress and violence had been linked to poor brain development, depression, and poor self-esteem, and children exposed to conflict and violence were at risk of long-term mental health and psychosocial issues.
COVID-19, big pharma fueling unprecedented human rights crisis. 6 companies at the helm of the global COVID-19 vaccine rollout are fueling an unprecedented human rights crisis because of their refusal to waive intellectual property rights and share vaccine technology, with most of the companies failing to prioritize vaccine deliveries to poorer countries, Amnesty International said in a major report. In the 64-page report, A Double Dose of Inequality, Pharma Companies and the COVID-19 Vaccines Crisis, Amnesty investigated 6 of the companies that hold the fate of billions of people in their hands: AstraZeneca, BioNTech, Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, Novavax, and Pfizer. The findings paint a dismal picture of an industry that is woefully failing to respect human rights. Out of 5.6 billion doses administered worldwide, a minuscule 0.3% have gone to low-income countries, with almost 80% being delivered to upper, middle, and high-income countries. Despite calls to prioritize and collaborate with COVAX, the international initiative attempting to ensure a fair global vaccine allocation, some of the companies have instead continued to top up vaccine supplies for wealthy countries already known to be hoarding vaccines. Polly Truscott, Foreign Affairs Advisor at Amnesty International, said, "Without equal access to vaccines across the planet, more variants are likely to mutate and spread in lower and higher income countries alike."
Another opponent of Rwanda president killed in Mozambique. Millionaire business Recovant Karemogigo was gunned down in broad daylight in his car by gunmen using automatic weapons as he returned home from one of his businesses in the capital outlying Matola suburb. The murder of the prominent critic of Rwandan President Paul Kagame in Maputo has confirmed fears of other Rwandan dissidents that the presence of Rwanda's troops in Mozambique is helping it to get at its own political enemies. Monday's killing of business Recovant Karemagigo in Mozambique is the latest on the list. The regime of President Kagame, who has effectively ruled Rwanda since 1994, is accused of suppressing dissident views. International rights groups claim opposition politicians, journalists, and activists at home in Rwanda and abroad have also been killed or made to disappear after criticizing Kagame or his ruling Rwandan Patriotic Front Party.
Progress against a neglected tropical disease in East Africa is under threat. Across Kenya, Sudan, and Ethiopia, weak and feverish patients are being taken to hospitals by their worried families, stricken by a parasitic killer. It might sound like malaria, but these patients are in fact affected by a lesser-known parasitic disease, visceral leishmaniasis, also known as Kala-Azar. Kala-Azar is the second deadliest parasitic killer in the world after malaria. The World Health Organization estimates that 50,000 to 90,000 people globally are infected each year. Without treatment, it is almost always fatal. Kala-Azar is neglected because it is a disease of poverty. Transmitted by the bite of a female sandfly, it affects the poorest communities who are often living in arid and semi-arid areas. Kala-Azar epidemics are aggravated by climatic conditions, core infections such as HIV, and population displacement such as large refugee movements during conflict. Tens of thousands of lives are at risk, and we need to act now.
Over 80.5 million COVID vaccination administered across the continent. As of the 21st of September, confirmed cases of COVID-19 from 55 African countries reach 8.1 million, while over 80.5 million vaccinations have been administered across the continent. Reported deaths in Africa reached 206,000 and over 7.4 million people have recovered. South Africa has the most reported cases of over 2.8 million and over 86,000 people died. Other most affected countries are Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Ethiopia, Egypt, and Kenya. The numbers are compiled by the Center for System Science and Engineering at the Johns Hopkins University using statistics from the World Health Organization and other international institutions, as well as national and regional public health departments.
Dozens hospitalized after Kenya school fire. Panicked students along with their teachers came out to survey the damage after a fire gutted a dormitory at the Ofafa Jericho High School in Kenya's Nairobi County. About 40 students were hospitalized after inhaling smoke in the Monday night disaster. The blaze destroyed personal effects belonging to the students. Medical authorities said most of the hospitalized students were suffering from breathing complications, but that they suffered no burns. The cause of the fire was not immediately known, and members of the Nairobi County Department said investigations would commence at daybreak. School fires are common in Kenya. Authorities have blamed arsonists and poor safety protocols.
Chinhoyi magistrate quashes Mugabe family's appeal. Chinhoyi Magistrate Ruth Moyo has upheld her decision to have the late former President Robert Mugabe's remain exhumed after she dismissed an appeal by his children. The family of the late political strongman had filed an appeal against Moyo's early ruling dismissing the application to nullify an order by the traditional court to exhume Mugabe's remains and rebury them at the National Heroes Acre in Harare. In her contested judgment, Moyo had argued that appellants, namely Bona Mugabe, Tinotenda Robert Jr., Belaimane Mugabe, had no business in attempting to reverse the ruling by the traditional court as they were not cited as respondent in the first instance. She noted the person cited in the case was their mother, the former First Lady Grace Mugabe, while the complainant was Tinos Manogovere.
Genocide fallout intensifies. Opposition parties insist on restorative justice in Namibia. Near ugly scenes ensued yesterday as members of the opposition angrily marched to parliament to protest the recently concluded genocide agreement between Namibia and Germany. Earlier this year, the two governments indicated that they have agreed that Germany will fund projects worth 18 billion Namibian dollars over 30 years. Popular Democratic Movement leader McHenry Venani said that amount is equivalent to the budget allocation of the health ministry for 1 year and serves no purpose considering it will be stretched out over 30 years. He added that by being excluded, this generation of descendants is denied a chance to be part of the discussions around the genocide issue, which will benefit them. Tens of thousands of Namibians, mainly the Nama and Oba Herero, were exterminated in what is called the first genocide of the 20th century. German troops massacred and displaced tens of thousands of Namibians from 1904 to 1908. In 2015, the two countries started negotiating an agreement that would combine an official apology by Germany as well as reparations. The marchers eventually handed over their petition to Deputy Speaker Loide Kasingo.
Birds with COVID-like viruses found in Laos. Scientists have discovered another clue to the origins of the virus that causes COVID-19, with birds living in caves in Laos found to be carrying a similar pathogen that experts suggest that could potentially infect humans directly. The virus has killed millions since it emerged in China in the late 2019, and controversy continues to swirl around where it came from. Researchers from France Pasteur Institute and the National University of Laos said their findings showed that the viruses genetically close to the SARS-CoV-2 virus exist in nature among bird species in the limestone caves in northern Laos, which neighbors China. of the virus says they identified among hundreds of birds tested in Ventina province, 3 were found to closely resemble the virus that caused COVID-19, particularly in the mechanism of latching onto the human cell.
Now in South Africa, 40 redefined buildings certified Green Star EBP, a first. South African property investment company Redefined Properties has been awarded Green Star Existing Building Performance certification for 40 of its buildings. This is a first for South Africa. The certification is accredited by the Green Building Council South Africa. The properties are located in the Western Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo and Gauteng. These assets comprise retail, office and industrial buildings across South Africa, as well as retail and logistics investments in Poland. Among the criteria for EBP Green Star certification are the implementation of a green mobility plan to encourage the use of alternative modes of transportation to and from work, and the development and implementation of a green procurement plan to encourage and guide asset and facility management teams to select the most sustainable products available on the market.
Lesotho and Libya joins the UNESCO World Biosphere Network. Lesotho and Libya have joined the UNESCO World Biosphere Network through the Matsenge and Ashafian sites, respectively. This was the outcome of the annual meeting of the International Coordinating Council of the UNESCO MENA and the Biosphere Program, which met in Africa for the first time. The meeting took place in Abuja, Nigeria. The UNESCO World Network of Biosphere Reserve is expanding to include 2 new African countries. Lesotho and Libya have just joined the UNESCO MENA and located in the northern Lesotho. The Matsenge Biosphere Reserve covers an area of 112 hectares. This natural site with its undisturbed ecosystem is home to Lesotho's last remaining indigenous forest and to high-priority endemic birds such as the Simon Seren. And those have been our stories. We'll be right back after the break with Professor Lovemore Matipira, who is going to talk to us about the annual Faculty Research Day at the University of Science and Technology. Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Namibia's University of Science and Technology, NUST, is today hosting its annual Faculty Research Day, and we are joined by Professor Lovemore Matipira, Assistant Dean for Research and Innovation. Good morning, Professor, and welcome to Africa Good Morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Namibia.
All right. What are the objectives with the university's Faculty Research Day?
The Faculty of Management Sciences Research Day is an annual event which is set to demonstrate or showcase research which is conducted in the faculty. The theme for the Faculty Research Day is transforming transitional economies through sustainability and innovation. So the key words there are sustainability and innovation, where sustainability will refer to continuity in the business growth and development, and innovation will relate to new novel ideas which could be used in transforming business processes. So the purpose of this research day mainly is to stimulate interest from the student community, as well as involvement of the stakeholders in the community in learning through the process of those who have been in research for a longer time. So we find the day to be very important.
All right. Is Africa doing enough research to find custom solution to the unique challenges the continent faces, as well as to add value to local resources?
Well, Africa, as we are all aware, that it is a continent which is transforming at its own pace. We understand that there's been significant research that has been going around in Africa, but most of the research is kind of silent. And the continent is now focused on doing research that is kind of transformative, which is meant to benefit society and business interest. So through transdisciplinary and multidisciplinary research and engagement with other non-universities in the world, Africa has moved a step ahead in trying to engage and showcase the ideas that they have, which could be relevant to the development of Africa at home. Yes.
All right, you spoke about engagement with other universities. I'm wondering, is NAST collaborating with other universities, like in terms of research, or is it just NAST and NAST students?
Not really. The university is actually collaborating worldwide.
Okay.
We've been doing research with colleagues in India, colleagues in Australia, all over the world, in Germany. We've been having exchange programs in our faculty, visiting Flensburg University in Germany to see how they are doing their research, what new innovative ideas they are having, and the sort of technological advancement which they are using in doing research. And more so, also back home, we have a strong collaboration with other universities in South Africa.
All right, what are currently some of NAST's most important and interesting research projects that you've seen, in your opinion?
From the Faculty of Management Sciences, we have two significant researches which are happening, or which one has already happened. One was where the faculty engaged with the United Nations last year to carry out a research on the socio-economic impact of COVID, where we are focusing on the social impact, economic impact, and other aspects related to the new normal of COVID. We find that to be very significant, and we had engagement with the government and other United Nations agencies, and we collaborated with the University of Namibia, NAST, as well as IUM to do the research. And then on the faculty itself, we are currently working on a research. I'm actually a lead researcher in that area, where we are focusing on revisiting the mathematical models of corruption. So the bottom line is that we have profiled the indices, or which might be the causes of corruption, and we are now at a stage of developing a software that will be able to detect corruption on specific industry interest. So we have already profiled the indices and the variables and come up with a model that will be relevant to enable us to do the engineering aspect and then develop that software. I am working, and our colleagues in India, having a strong background with India, to try to develop that software. And we hope it is a novel idea which could be useful in the short term, particularly not only in Africa but everywhere, as you are aware that issues of corruption are everywhere.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
So these are significant or landmark, transformative research that actually seek to benefit the community and other stakeholders in business.
All right. Being a professor is the benchmark in academics. What is your advice to somebody who wants to be a professor, somebody who wants to do their doctorate, just somebody who wants to excel in academic?
Well, the idea of moving towards achieving a doctorate, you need to stimulate your mind towards research, and should be research focused, because most of the work is ideally based on research. And to be considered as a professor, you also have to have wide coverage in terms of research, and doing significant research, not just research on the periphery, but research that is meant to develop or actually assist, or in short, we call it transformative research that will benefit the community and other stakeholders, not just those research which is just on the periphery. So it is important to have that interest in research.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor Lovemore, for being here and for disseminating this information about Faculty Research Day at the University of Science and Technology.
Thank you very much for having me.
This is Still Africa. Good morning. We'll be right back after the break.
What an informative and timely interview, as a lot of university students are about to head into exams, you know. All right now we're going to take a trip to Zimbabwe and have a chat with Talent Gore about the happenings in the House of Stone. Good morning, Talent. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm all right, Talent, but not as good as frontline workers who the Zimbabwe government has doled out farms to hundreds of. Could you tell us about that?
President Emerson Mnangagwa has directed that over 300 healthcare workers be given agricultural land. Well, this moves comes after the healthcare employees wrote a letter to the president for the government to consider non-monetary benefits for frontline workers. So the government has since written to all provinces, the agricultural ministry has since written to all provinces in the country to start giving out land to the healthcare workers. They said that these farms that are going to be giving that they are going to be giving to the frontline workers are strictly apolitical. It has nothing to do with politics, but rather it is the government that is just appreciating the healthcare workers who are working tirelessly to fight the COVID-19 pandemic during this time. So they say that at the farms, they are strictly apolitical and they're going to be given to deserving employees, to deserving healthcare employees.
All right, that is so beautiful. I love that. I love it. The government has resolved to keep schools open despite a surge in COVID-19 cases in schools since early the month.
The Zimbabwean government has resolved to keep schools open despite a surge in COVID-19 cases. We have seen that there are a number of schools that are reporting positive cases each day in Zimbabwe. Schools opened earlier this month, and since then they have been reporting positive cases of COVID-19. So the government has said that they're not going to close the schools, but rather they're going to keep the schools open, and they're going to make sure that they do contact tracing and they do surveillance in the schools and surrounding areas. The government also said that they're going to be vaccination of all eligible population in the schools and the surrounding areas. They also said that there's going to be mandatory testing for everyone in the schools, especially those that have reported the highest cases. There's going to be mandatory testing of COVID-19, and they're going to isolate anyone whom they think that has symptoms of COVID-19. So schools are not going to be open. They're going to remain, they're not going to be closed. I'm sorry, they're not going to be closed. They're going to remain open, and the government said that they're working tirelessly to make sure that there is no COVID-19 cases that are spread out of the schools into the communities.
All right, now in the last of your stories, Talent, police arrest and seriously injure students at Belvedere Teachers College in Harare for protesting. Could you tell us about that?
Police in Harare seriously injured and arrested students who were protesting at the Belvedere Teachers College. The students are believed to have been, they are allegedly to have been protesting over school fees hike and the campus decision to deny them entry into the campus. They said that the campus had increased the school fees beyond their reach. Apparently, for those who are staying on campus, they are now supposedly supposed to pay 28,200 Zimbabwean dollars, and for those who will be staying off campus, they're going to be paying 21,100 Zimbabwean dollars, which is approximately about 450 US dollars thereabout. So they say that that fees was beyond their reach and they cannot pay that much, so they've been denied entry into the campus. Those who are not able and those who have not paid their fees, they've been denied entry into the campus. So they were saying that we are writing exams next month in October, so the school cannot deny us entry into the campus. So yesterday the police arrested some of the students who were protesting, and they injured some of them. So they are apparently detained at Harare Central Police Station.
All right, Talent, thank you for bringing us the news as it is from Zimbabwe.
And thank you very much for having me.
It's always good to have you here. This is Africa Good Morning, hoping to have an Africa Good Day. Only one way to find out. Weather forecast up next.
The COVID-19 virus spreads mainly between people in close contact with each other. It spreads most easily in crowded settings, closed spaces with poor ventilation, or through prolonged contact with an infected person. This is because, as a person infected with the COVID-19 virus breathes, talks, coughs, or sneezes, liquid particles of various sizes are expelled into the air. Larger particles are called droplets. Smaller particles are called aerosols. You can contract the virus if infected particles come into contact with your eyes, nose, or mouth. Whether you are inside or outside, always maintain a physical distance of at least 1 meter from others. When you are in an enclosed or poorly ventilated space, the virus can spread more easily. In these conditions, aerosols can remain suspended in the air or travel farther than 1 meter. When you are inside, make sure to stay at least 1 meter from others. Wear a mask. Open a window to improve ventilation. And limit your time spent in these settings. To protect yourself and others, always follow these 6 precautions.
If you are fully vaccinated, can you still get COVID-19? How frequent are breakthrough infections, and what does COVID-19 look like if you are fully vaccinated? WHO's Dr. Kate O'Brien explains in Science in 5. No matter whether you are vaccinated against COVID-19 or still waiting, keep following these precautions to protect yourself and others. Number 1, avoid crowds. Keep physical distance, wear your mask, and open the windows. And here is more.
If you've been fully vaccinated, can you still get COVID-19? We're going to talk about breakthrough infections with Dr. Catherine O'Brien today. Hello and welcome to Science in 5. I'm Vismita Gupta-Smith. Welcome, Kate. My first question to you is, please explain breakthrough infections. How come people can still get COVID-19 even when they're fully vaccinated?
The vaccines that we have against COVID are incredibly effective vaccines, and people have seen the results from the clinical trials of in anywhere in the 80% range, 90% range of efficacy. But that doesn't mean that 100% of people, 100% of the time, are going to be protected against disease. There is no vaccine that provides that level of protection for any disease. So we do expect in any vaccine program that there will be rare, but there will be cases of disease among people who were fully vaccinated, and certainly among some people who were partially vaccinated. This doesn't mean that the vaccines aren't working. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the vaccines. What it does mean is that not everybody who receives vaccines has 100% protection. What we do want to really emphasize for people is that it's so important to get vaccinated because these vaccines are really effective, and it gives you a really good chance of not developing disease.
Kate, how frequent are breakthrough infections? And if you are fully vaccinated but happen to catch COVID-19, what does that look like?
So we're learning a couple things about breakthrough infections, Vismita. The first is that the degree of severity of disease among people who have a breakthrough infection is less severe than the severity of disease among people who aren't vaccinated. So vaccines are operating in a couple of different ways. First, of course, they're preventing people from getting disease at all. And even when disease does occur among a person, people who are fully vaccinated, the severity of that disease is less. The second question is about how often we're actually seeing breakthrough infections. We're monitoring this really carefully, and there's a couple things I want to say about breakthrough infections. The first is that they are uncommon. And so this is not something that's happening in an unexpected way. But they don't happen equally among all different kinds of people. People who are at increased risk of disease, so people with frail immune systems, people who are in older age groups, they have a greater risk of having breakthrough disease than other people. So it's not an equal risk of breakthrough disease. The second point here is that we're seeing more cases of breakthrough disease in part because people are stopping the other interventions that reduce the transmission of this virus. So when the virus starts to transmit at a greater and greater pace and with greater frequency, there's a lot more exposure that everybody has, including people who are vaccinated.
So, Kate, people may be wondering if they can still catch COVID-19 even after being fully vaccinated, and if they can still infect others, then why vaccinate?
So this is a question that lots of people are asking, and I really want to emphasize that vaccines do a number of different things to protect you and to protect others. So we've already talked about how the main function of vaccines is to protect you against getting disease. We've also talked about the fact that if you were to get disease, a rare event among vaccinated people, but it does occur, that your disease will be less severe than it would have been if you weren't vaccinated. And the third thing that vaccines do is they reduce the transmission of the infection of the virus from one person to the next. And the way that vaccines do that is in a number of different ways. The first is they can protect you against getting infected at all. The second way that they work is if you become infected, you're actually shedding that virus for a shorter period of time than if you weren't vaccinated. And the third way that vaccines work is, again, if you happen to get infected, the amount of virus that you have in your nose, in the back of your throat, that you're shedding and potentially transmitting to somebody is less of the virus. There's less density of the virus in you, and so less risk that you transmit it to somebody else. And what is so critical is interrupting transmission of this virus has to be vaccines and. It has to be vaccines and all the other things that we're doing, especially while people are still in the process of getting vaccinated. So now really isn't the time for us to reduce those other interventions while we're living in communities that don't have substantial vaccination yet.
Thank you, Kate. That was...
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. It's time for us to get straight into your economic news stories for the day. We start off in Zimbabwe. EJWP slams Mthuli Ncube for sidelining young women. Economic Justice for Women Project has slammed Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube's policies for accelerating limited participation of women in economic governance issues amid calls for authorities to be gender sensitive. Speaking to newszimbabwe.com this week, Executive Director Margaret Mutsamvi said the current plans to commercialize parastatals tabled in the National Development Strategy will do more harm than good for women. The NDS-1 thrust towards fiscal consolidation / full or partial privatization of public institutions to reduce government expenditure will cost ordinary citizens, especially young women, in the limited provision of basic public services as they shift from provision of social welfare to becoming profit inclined, she said. EJWP bemoaned the fact that most government ministries do not have clear-cut gender policies, which makes it impossible for ministries to enforce gender budgeting and planning at ministerial level.
South Africa, no ransom paid to alleged hackers, Department of Justice. The Justice and Constitutional Development Department has clarified a media report that hackers demanded a 33 million rand ransom following a ransomware attack on the Department's of Information Technology system earlier this month. According to the report, hackers allegedly encrypted all information on the department's electronic system, including backups, and demanded the ransom be paid, an allegation the department strongly denied. The department would like to place it on record that it has not received any ransom demand following the ransomware attack. Meanwhile, the department said it has recovered some functionality on its MojaPay system, which controls its child maintenance payment system, and these have been administered.
Tanzania, EU invests $10 million via Enabel for the production of ecological honey. The European Union and the Belgian Development Agency are signing a partnership with the Tanzanian authorities for the production of sustainable honey, a project which will support local beekeepers with an investment of $10 million. The agreement to implement this sustainable beekeeping development project was signed recently in Brussels, Belgium, between Jean van Wetter, Director General of the Belgian Development Agency, and Pamela Koch-Hamilton, the Executive Director of the International Trade Center, a joint agency of the World Trade Organization and the United Nations. Tanzania is the second largest producer of honey on the African continent, with an annual average of 8,000 tons, far behind Ethiopia with 45,300 tons per year, according to Norton Rose Fulbright. At the same time, the East African country is the leading African supplier of honey to Europe.
Soweto residents want 200 rand flat rate for electricity. Soweto residents are pushing for the introduction of a 200 monthly flat rate for electricity, as they cannot currently afford electricity prices. Speaking to ENCA, community leader Michael Misowa said many Soweto residents are pensioners who cannot afford prices currently calculated by the city and ESCOM. We are proposing a flat rate of 200 rand per month. The people of Soweto are prepared to pay. They have made the mistakes of not paying, he said. The city of Johannesburg and other major metropoles introduced above inflation increases for basic services in July, and that includes electricity.
That brings us to the end of our economic news stories. Up next, economic indicators.
If I got it and you want it and you'll never let it drop, all we gotta do is take our love to the top. I will ride for you, baby, even die for you. When I'm loving you, but my heart don't stop.
Straight into your sports news stories for the day. CAF to hold Women's Champions League draw on 29 September. The draw for the inaugural CAF Women's Champions League will take place on September 29 in the Egyptian capital, Cairo. 8 teams will participate in the tournament, which will take place between 5 and 19 November, following the conclusion of the 6 CAF regional preliminary qualifiers. The 8 teams will be divided into 2 groups of 4 teams, each with the top 2 from each group advancing to the semi-finals. Wadi Degla FC, who belong to the UNAF region, secured automatic qualification as hosts of the tournament, joining Morocco's Asfar FC. Wafu B region, as the zone holder, which has the defending Africa Women's Cup of Nations champions, were granted 2 representatives, Hassaks Ladies FC from Ghana and Rivers Angels from Nigeria.
Qatar pulls out of 2 events due to groin injury. Britain's Joanna Konta has pulled out of upcoming WTA events in Chicago and Indian Wells because of the groin injury that also forced her to skip the US Open, British media reported. Konta withdrew from Wimbledon in June, a day before the Grand Slam got underway, when a member of her team tested positive for COVID-19. She also missed the Tokyo Olympics after contracting the virus. Konta last played at the Western and Southern Open in Cincinnati last month, where she in the opening match, but she was knocked out in the opening match by Czech Karolina Muchova.
West Indies claim consolation win in Super Over. We're talking cricket. The Momentum Proteas ended their outstanding tour to the West Indies on a low after losing their dead rubber last Women's One-Day International at Sir Viv Richards Stadium on Sunday. Standing captain for West Indies, Deandra Dottin, starred with the ball as the hosts notched up a stunning Super Over win over the Proteas women to end the 5-match series 4-1 via the 1-over eliminator. The hosts won the toss and opted to bat and managed to post 192 for 5 in their 50 overs. The Windies bowlers found some life in the middle stages of the Proteas innings when they picked up the key wickets of Lara Goodall, Dane van Niekerk and Chloe Tryon in quick succession to stifle the Proteas chase. Needing 54 runs with 5 wickets in hand, the experienced Mignon du Preez was integral with a gutsy 46 of 59 deliveries and 16 not out by Sinalo Jafta that ensured South Africa tied the match with the last ball of the innings.
Ex-McLaren boss appointed to Aston Martin role. Former McLaren team principal Martin Whitmarsh is returning to Formula One in October in a new senior management role with Silverstone-based Aston Martin. The team, owned by Canadian billionaire Lawrence Stroll, said in a statement on Tuesday that Whitmarsh had been appointed Group CEO of a newly created Aston Martin Performance Technology, which will include the F1 team. It also developed the group's technical capabilities and intellectual property. Stroll said Aston Martin aimed to become champion winners within 4 to 5 years and evolve into a £1 billion business.
In the last of our sports stories, Al Ahly slapped Pitso Mosimane with fine following Super Cup loss. Egyptian giants Al Ahly have fined coach Pitso Mosimane and the technical team following the Egyptian Super Cup loss to Tal'eya El Gaish. Each member of the technical team is believed to have received a fine in the region of the equivalent of around 280,000 rand. Mosimane's side go into virtually every tournament that they play as favorites, and as the reigning CAF Champions League winners would have been expected to record a routine win over Al Gaish. However, Ali failed to put their scoring boots on in the game as they were held to a goalless draw before losing 3-2 on penalties. The result will compound the pressure on Mosimane in the new season. While the South African led his club to the Champions League last season, they were usurped by Zamalek to the Egyptian Premier League title. There is no doubt that Mosimane will be expected to land the domestic league title as a minimum requirement environment this season. Ooh,
Yeah.
the pressure is mounting.
Intense.
But repeatedly, he's always said he can rise to the occasion. Let's see
Yeah.
how it goes. This is Africa Good Morning. After the break, your headlines. Africa Good Morning has been streaming live from 7 a.m., bringing you the news and current affairs from the SADC region and beyond. Next up, let's have a look at the headlines from today's top stories. Restore trust and inspire hope, UN chief says in message to UN General Assembly 76. Insurgency in northeastern Nigeria killed 300,000 children. COVID-19, big pharma fueling unprecedented human rights crisis. Another opponent of Rwanda president killed in Mozambique. EJWP slams Mthuli Ncube for sidelining young women. CAF to hold Women's Champions League draw on 29 September. Those have been our stories.
We thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Africa Good Morning. We'll be back again tomorrow, same time, same place. We do welcome your remarks regarding our show. You can email them to us. Our email is agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na. Alternatively, we are on Facebook and Twitter. That's at Africa Good Morning. We also have a website. It's called One Up 2 for more content that you love to see. Do not forget, we are still in the middle of a pandemic. Get vaccinated. Wear your mask and avoid unnecessary public gatherings. And on that note, it's all my love, all my light.
Until tomorrow, Swera Jaganaka.